What's up YouTube, Brandon here. Today we're going to be talking about my initial impressions on the Bodyguard 2.0 carry comp or performance center, whatever you want to call it. Haven't taken this to the range yet, but my initial impressions are it's small, compact, feels well built, you know, all that good stuff. But some things I don't like about it right off the bat, which I'm going to fix, and I wanted to talk through those. So number one, like the previous shields I've had, this one has an extremely tight slide, which is just crazy. And there's a hitch about midway through the slide where it seems to be getting stuck on something. I'm not sure what that is, but right there it seems to be getting stuck. And I have to really muscle it to overcome it. I'm not sure what that is. I'm assuming once I tear it apart, I'm gonna figure it out. The other thing that I don't like about this is this particular one, the trigger is really garbage. I don't know what's going on with it. There's multiple hitches in the trigger stroke, and it's pulling around 5 to 5.5 pounds. I think once I've gotten it 4.5 pounds, but it's just not good. This little safety dingus right here, when I pull the trigger, it's not always clearing. There's a little plunger in the back right here. So when you pull, that plunger is supposed to tuck up and in. But what I've been finding is if I'm pulling, sometimes it doesn't tuck all the way in, and then that causes an initial hitch even before I get into the trigger stroke. So I'm gonna play around with it and see if I can get those things fixed. And I'm gonna walk through how I do a trigger job. I'm gonna do that on this. Another annoyance of this one is apparently to disassemble the slide to get out the firing pin block safety and to be able to polish that up. You actually have to drift out the rear sight, take it off to be able to access that. So that's really annoying. Once I get it set up, I'm sure I'm gonna be happy with it. So what have I done so far? Nothing. Let's do a couple trigger pulls so I can kind of show you what we're dealing with here. So I always like to try to be very mechanical when I'm doing trigger pulls just to make sure I'm getting consistent. So this is wedged against this. We're gonna get our little handy trigger gauge here, hold it flat. I'm gonna pull right at the base of the safety dingus and we'll see what we get. Let's see, so 90 degrees, it's wedged. Pull, pull, pull. Okay, so that one right at 5 pounds. That's pretty consistent. Let's do another one. Again, this is nothing that I can't fix, I don't think, so it's not a big deal to me. But if you're someone who just wants to buy the gun and have it work off the shelf, at least in my experience, that is not what's gonna happen. Let's see, so get it right at the base of the safety dingus. Pull, pull, pull. Okay, so that one, yeah, just a shade under 5 pounds, about 4 pounds, 10 ounces. So that's pretty consistent. So we're not gonna actually engage the, we're not gonna prime the trigger, but I just wanted to show you, there's basically 4 different hitches. I don't know if you'll be able to see it as I'm pulling, but if I pull very gingerly through the trigger stroke, we have the initial pull right here. Stop, so there's 1, pull it some more, 2, pull it some more, 3, pull it some more, 4, and then 5. So that time was 5 distinct ones. And so it feels like it's getting hung up on little metal burrs in various portions of the trigger. You can see as I actuate the trigger here, this little rod is going up and I can feel resistance right there as that is kind of going up. So I think I'm gonna polish, I'm gonna take it apart, I'm gonna polish the channel it runs in. I'm gonna polish all the internals. Another issue is that if I look on the inside here, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. Let me see if I can get in there. Okay, so you see the trigger bar moving in there. It might be hard to see on camera, but as I'm pulling the trigger, I can see the trigger bar ever so slightly actually torquing into the side of the frame. Now, I don't know if that's an intended design feature or what. It's my understanding that it should be moving perfectly straight and back, but in my case, it's very, very slightly kind of torquing into the frame. So I'm gonna take a look at that once I get it all disassembled. I'm gonna polish the inside of the frame and the trigger bar and basically everything. The feed ramps, I'm gonna take out the firing pin block safety plunger. I'm gonna polish that. I'm gonna polish out the channel it runs in, because frequently my previous 2 shields have had issues with the firing pin block plunger not being deburred properly. So it was kind of sticking. So yeah, has some issues. I think they're all fixable. So what are we gonna do? We have the Galloway Precision. We have the 10% lighter guide rod spring, which I've heard works wonders for this, lightening up the slide. And then we also have the short stroke trigger. This is just the trigger shoe. This is not a full trigger assembly, but I think with the new trigger shoe, that's gonna eliminate this little catching of the little finger safety dingus there. I think I'm just gonna resolve that. And then with me taking it all apart, polishing all the internals, I'm not gonna modify any springs on this one, I'm just gonna polish the internals. I think that's gonna resolve the kind of 4 or 5 little hitches I'm feeling. Now again, when you're pulling through real fast, you feel 1 hitch or maybe 2, but if you do it slowly, you can see there's 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 distinct little plateaus where different pieces of resistance are being encountered by the trigger, and then you're having to overcome that. So hopefully polishing everything with a Dremel and some Blue Magic, and making sure that the trigger bar is straight, so it's not torquing into the frame at all, will solve everything. So yeah, pretty excited actually. Aside from to me, these are minor issues, like they're fixable, but I just wanted to kind of talk about how this initially is out of the box. So if you're just buying this and you just want to run it out of the box, if you're just planning on using it as like a 3-yard gun, you're just, going to be stroking the trigger all the way through, just bang, 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 no problem. It doesn't matter, but I don't know. I'm kind of a trigger snob. I want to make it as good as it can be. So I'm going to disassemble it and we're going to go from there. And I will walk you guys through the process as I do it. All right, so step 1 of the disassembly, we're going to throw in the new stainless steel guide rod from Galloway Precision. This is 10% lighter than the factory one, although I've heard it feels even better than that. So let's break this thing down. So first we're gonna take it back to slide lock. This thing is tough. Next we're gonna flip this bar right here to the open position. Okay, next we're gonna release the slide. Next, pull the trigger. Obviously it's empty. Next, take the slide off. There we go. So let's see if we can see better in here, the little trigger bar. So as you see, as this pulls, it's hard to see on camera, but if I look at it myself, I can just see this just slightly wanting to angle outwards as I'm pulling it. So it's occluding a little bit. So I might have to polish the frame down a little bit or just make a little channel there. And then this little piece, once I get it out, I'm gonna polish that. I'm going to polish the inside of this channel as well, so that this piece can ride smoothly in there with no resistance, because it does feel better without this there. So we're gonna do that. Let me see this. So you can see, even just looking at the firing pin safety plunger, which is this little thing right there, if I push it manually, I can feel it kind of catching where it hasn't been polished. Like I can feel resistance. Not just the resistance from the spring, but I can feel like some grittiness in there. So we're gonna get rid of that, which is gonna hopefully improve stuff. Yeah, I can even see some little tooling marks on that. So we're gonna polish all those out. We're gonna polish up the feed ramps. So we're gonna polish this feed ramp here. We're gonna polish the feed ramp at the base of the barrel. Yeah, so let's replace the guide rod first, since that's real easy. No problem there. Ugh. Oh, this is tight. God damn! All right. Really tight, my goodness. And while we're at it, let's take out the barrel. Let's take a look at the feed ramp. So yeah, you can, I don't know if you can see that with the light. There's a tiny little lip on the feed ramp, so we gotta polish that out as well. So just lots of little things to deal with. So I just want to see what this feels like with the new guide rod in. And then once that's done, we will... Oh yeah, this guide rod's way better already. All right, looks good. Let's see how it goes. Oh yeah, way better. All right, so guide rod, much better. So yeah, I already like that. This is only being shot with high quality ammo. It's like the Federal HST 99 grain stuff, so I'm not too concerned about guide rod issues. But yeah, okay, so happy with the guide rod. Next, we've got to take the slide off. We have to knock out the rear sight so that we can disassemble we can take the firing pin out. We're going to polish that up. We're going to take out the firing pin block safety. We're going to polish that up. We're going to check the channel, polish that, you know, just polish everything. So we'll come back once we're ready to get started. All right, y'all. All I can say is, wow, this rear sight was so tight in the dovetail. My goodness. I don't have a sight pusher. I just used a punch, a brass punch and a hammer and put it in a vise, and my goodness, this was tight. So if you don't have a punch and a hammer, you can see I did one little mar there. That's okay, I don't really give a shit. But yeah, so step one is you got to drift the rear sight out of the dovetail in order to be able to take off this back retaining plate and then take out the firing pin. So once that's done, we're just going to drift out this little piece. Should be pretty easy. I should just be able to do it by hand. Okay, so this is a little trickier than I thought. I had looked at an instructional before and I didn't see this. So they might have changed the design, but this is the firing pin channel in here. And the video I had seen, or the instructions I had seen, said to just tap out this rear retaining pin. That doesn't seem to be the case any longer because there appears to be an additional metal rod that goes from this rear retainer up into the firing pin spring. So what we're gonna have to do, looks like, is we're going to depress the firing pin block plunger. Then we're going to use this little device, like a dental tool type thing, to pull the spring until it's disengaged from the rear retaining plate. The retaining plate seems to be attached to a little nub that comes out into the spring to retain it. So, I mean, to be honest, I think this is a little bit of a design improvement over the original Bodyguard 2.0, but it just makes disassembly more difficult. So let me see if I can do it on camera. I've been messing with it a little bit, trying to figure it out, and I think that's the solution. So let's see. So get this, and we'll get as much of the spring as we can. Oh. Yeah, I need more hands. Let's try it up there. There we go. That's the answer. Okay. So this is new. This is different than the one I had seen previously. So what you're going to need to do is, this is going to be stuck into this spring. So you're going to need to depress the firing pin block plunger. Then you're going to need to get the coil of the spring as far as you can and then push it up until it is completely disengaged from this retaining plunger, and then it'll just fall out. So yeah, a little bit of a change from the design of the Bodyguard 2.0 as far as I'm aware. But I think it's a good change. It retains the spring a little bit better. So yeah, now let's release that, and here comes the firing pin. Yep. Yep, so here we go. We took out the firing pin. So now, instead of the firing pin just sitting freely, it's captured by this. So in order to disassemble it, you have to pull this spring up until it is clear of this, and then this will just fall out. So yeah, hopefully that helps some people. I messed with this for a while because I saw a video tutorial of the Bodyguard 2.0 and it doesn't appear to be the same. So there's that. All right, so now we've got the firing pin out, and I'll probably hit, well, I don't know if I'll hit this stuff. Let me see, does it feel? It feels pretty good. I'm not gonna mess with it. Sometimes I'll take out this, these things and then polish everything, but this feels really good, so I'm gonna leave it alone, I think. I'll probably hit this part with a polishing wheel, but there's that. There's this. All right, so next step will be to take out the extractor, which is this device, and the firing pin block plunger. So it looks like there's this pin right here, and it's bigger on the top than on the bottom. So we're just gonna get a small punch, and it looks like it can only go one way. So we're gonna punch it from the bottom up through the top, and that should release the extractor, which will then release the firing pin blocks safety. And then we'll polish everything. So, yep, that's where we're at. All right, so again, to take out the extractor, we are going to punch this pin out, but it has to be punched from the bottom. It's narrower at the bottom than the top. So we have what punch is this? A 1/16 or 1.5 millimeter punch. This should be sufficient. Whoop. Let's do it up here. And it's a little bit off center, which is weird. I don't like that. Whoop. But it's not too tight, it doesn't look like, so. There we go. Okay, so yeah. That pin's coming out just like we'd like. Give it a little jiggle here because it's almost out. Whoop, there we go. So that pin is out. Yep. All right, let's take out the extractor. So we're going to depress the firing pin block. And then that should allow us to drift the extractor out and forward. Let's see here. Let me actually switch sides. There we go. Out and forward. Perfect. And then we'll release that. Good, so we took out the extractor. And just remember, this little hook faces the bottom. So put it just like that. Let's flip this over. So there's our firing pin block plunger. So this thing has been grinding a little bit, so we're going to take it out. There we go. So here we are. There's a little tiny the firing pin block safety. So we're going to take the spring out for now, and then we're going to polish it. Yeah, so we're going to polish this whole thing. We're going to polish the channel that it runs in. And you can even see some little, well, you probably can't see it, but there's some little residue in the channel where it's been grinding a little bit. So yeah, that's how you disassemble the slide. All right, just real quick, I was hammering out the pins. I took out this rear pin. This thing is messed up. It's like shredded. There's a chunk of it missing. I've never seen this before when taking out a pin. There's like sharp edges. Yeah, I thought it was a piece of plastic that had stuck on there, but no, it's a piece of metal. So not encouraging, that's for sure. But, well, let's take out another one and see if the other ones have the same issue. This one, yep, this one also has a jagged edge. Huh, never seen that before. All right, let's try the last one. And this one's good. This one doesn't have a drag, like a torn edge. So yeah, I don't know what Smith & Wesson was doing, but didn't do a good job with these. And I'm not going to show how to take all these pins out because Galloway Precision already has a really good video on how to disassemble the lower, but I was just surprised when that pin came out all shredded. All right, we've gotten the trigger all disassembled. So, major parts we're going to polish. We're going to polish this whole trigger bar spring, or this trigger bar, all facets of it, polish it really well. This articulates with this back section. This inserts here. Let's see if I can get it in there. There we go. And so when you're pulling the trigger, this is moving. So we're going to polish also all the surfaces on this that we can polish, just to minimize any wear. And I can see, you probably can't see it because it's still new, but I can see some discoloration right here where it's rubbing. So it's not completely smooth. So we're going to polish all that. We're going to polish the feed ramp on the barrel. We're going to polish the feed ramp on the kind of the bottom part. It's like a split feed ramp. So we're going to polish that. Can't really see. But yeah, so the main portions we're going to polish are transfer bar, this rear trigger mechanism, the barrel, and the feed ramp on this bottom front block. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else necessary to polish, so I'm not going to show. Oh, and then the we're going to polish the fire and pin block safety plunger, and we're also going to polish the channel where that plunger goes. So yeah, we got a lot of polishing to do. And then once that's done, we'll install the new trigger and then we'll be good to go. All right, so we're all ready to begin polishing. We got the Dremel here, we got the Blue Magic, and then we're gonna polish.
Make sure you don't get dirty.
That's right, we're gonna polish the feed ramps. So this is a split feed ramp. So we're gonna polish this one, and then the one on the barrel. Then we're gonna polish
all of them.
Yeah, we're gonna polish this, the inside of that. Whoop. We're gonna polish the inside. We're gonna polish this little channel here. We're gonna polish the firing pin plunger, or the firing safety plunger. We're gonna polish here where the trigger interface is, and we're gonna polish the trigger bar.
We're gonna polish it with this.
Yeah, we're gonna polish it with the Dremel and Blue Magic. All right, y'all, we're done. Man, I do not recommend doing the trigger job and polishing the internals on this thing. This thing was a giant hassle. The pins were super tight. The sight was super tight. Some of the pins had the metal roll had been like sheared, so they weren't smooth. It's fiddly to get the front block back in. It has to kind of go under the trigger bar, so that was a hassle. Yeah, next time if I do this, I won't be doing this again, but I would take this to a gunsmith if you don't have the tools for it. And I had the tools and it was still a hassle. That having been said, now that it's done, it's definitely better. It did not improve as much as my previous shields that I had had. I'd say the grittiness improved maybe 15-20% or so. It's definitely better, like it's noticeably better. And then the trigger, the upgraded or the different trigger shoe from Galloway Precision, I like it a little bit better. It doesn't have the hitch from the dingus catching that the factory one did, so that's good. I polished basically everything I could inside, and that has lightened the trigger a bit. I think it was about 5 pounds pretty consistently before, and now it's consistently around 4, maybe 4.3. So let me just hold it in the same position I was earlier, and then we'll go kind of at the bottom of the safety dingus, just like on the previous one, and just hold it in place, slow and steady, and it's braced against the wood, so we're going to get a fair comparison. All right, let's see. Yeah, so we're right about 4 pounds. So it dropped like I said, it dropped about 20% because it was about 5 pounds before. So yeah, about 20% less gritty, about 20% less pull weight. But it's noticeably better. There, you can still feel kind of the stage stacking happening, but it's much, much less, I won't say less noticeable because I still notice it, but it's much less pronounced at each level, if that makes sense. All right, that one moved a little bit, but yeah, it's again, 4 pounds. So dropped about 20% in trigger weight, which I'm happy just for polishing. I didn't change any springs or anything like that. I'm gonna see if I can show you inside. I don't know if you're able to see. Oh yeah, you can see. So I polished the feed ramps really well. Looks really, really good. Yep. I polished the trigger bar. Let's see, take this down real quick. So I polished the trigger transfer bar here, so that's smoother. I polished this portion on the inside of the frame. I polished that. I polished the block on the back where the trigger bar interfaces with it. I polished the this little place right here. I polished it inside where the trigger bar kind of interfaces. And most importantly, I took out the plunger and polished that as well as the hole, and that made a big difference. The plunger, before when I pushed it, I could feel grittiness going up and down. Now it's really smooth, and that's the main place where I've found triggers feel really bad, and you feel that stacking is if there's burrs and things here and there's a heavy spring, the trigger bar is basically dragging backwards and it has to depress this as it moves over it. So having this really smooth and cleaned out made a big difference. The new Galloway Precision recoil spring guide rod combo, it's nice. It's definitely made it easier to rack. It's still pretty stiff, but yeah, it's acceptable. But yeah, this thing is so fiddly to get back together. So this block in particular at the end, you have to bring it in, and there's a little channel right here that it runs down. There's a little guided channel that this thing's supposed to go down, but it likes to catch on this trigger bar. And it was really a hassle. I don't know what I was doing. I could not get it past there it took me like 15, 20 minutes fiddling with it before I finally got it nestled in there. So yeah, if your gunsmith's charging, $50, $80 for a trigger job, I would just get it done by them. It is better, but like I said, yeah, have them do it. Okay, so now that that's all done, much more happy with it than when I first got it. So I'm looking forward to shooting it. Haven't even shot it yet. I heard that there were issues with the feed ramps, so I just went ahead and polished them right now just to get out of the way. But yeah, overall, now that I've cleaned it up, pretty happy. Oh, and like I said, the sights were so tight. Got some nice little marang on there from my brass punch, my old one, which is now damaged because this thing was in so tight it kind of mushroomed the end of my brass punch. But I have other newer ones, so that's all right. But yeah, any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'm looking forward to shooting this thing. It's my only pure iron sight gun. I really do like the iron sights. They pick up really well. I guess the previous Bodyguard, people didn't like the sights, but I don't know if they changed them or what. These seem pretty good. So yeah, looking forward to shooting it, and I will get back once I put, a decent amount of rounds through it. So thanks for watching.